A wedding day is supposed to be a beginning. It is a day of promises, a day of white dresses and happy tears. It is the first page of a new chapter, a story of a long and happy life with the person you love. We plan for this day for months, sometimes years. We dream about it. It is supposed to be the happiest day of our lives. But what happens when that beautiful first page is torn out of your story? What happens when the happiest day of your life becomes the most painful one? This is a story about a promise that was broken in the most terrible way. I would be interested to know, what does a promise mean to you? Please share your thoughts in the comments. My name is Lily, and this story is about my wedding night. My love story with Samuel was simple and beautiful. We met through friends. He was a kind, gentle man with a warm smile and a good heart. He was a high school teacher, and he was passionate about his work. With him, I felt safe. I felt loved. He was not a man of grand romantic gestures. His love was in the small, everyday things. He would bring me a cup of tea in the morning. He would listen to me after a long, hard day at my job as a nurse. He would hold my hand when we walked down the street. We were best friends. We were a team. After 2 years, he asked me to marry him. We were on a simple picnic in the park, the same park where we had our first date. It was perfect. Of course, I said yes. We spent the next year planning our life together. We bought a small house with a little garden. We talked about our future, about the children we wanted, about growing old together on our small porch. Our love felt so real, so strong. It felt like nothing could ever break it. Our wedding day was the most beautiful day I had ever seen. The sun was shining. I wore a simple, elegant white dress that my mother had helped me choose. My father walked me down the aisle of the small, beautiful church. All of our friends and family were there, their faces full of smiles and happy tears. When I saw Samuel standing at the altar, waiting for me, my heart was so full of love I thought it would burst. He looked so handsome. His eyes were full of love for me. We said our vows. We promised to love and protect each other, in sickness and in health, for the rest of our lives. When he placed the gold wedding ring on my finger, I was the happiest woman in the world. I had my husband, my best friend. Our forever was just beginning. The reception was a blur of happy moments. We danced our first dance. We cut the beautiful cake. We laughed with our friends and family. It was a perfect celebration of our perfect love. At the end of the night, we left the party, our family and friends throwing rice and cheering for us. We went to a beautiful hotel room that our parents had prepared for us. There were flowers everywhere, and candles were lit. It was so romantic. We were finally alone. Husband and wife. I was so happy, so full of hope for our new life. But when I turned to look at Samuel, the happy groom was gone. He was standing by the window, looking out at the city lights, and his shoulders were shaking. He looked so sad, so broken. I went to him, my heart suddenly full of a cold fear. "Samuel, my love, what is wrong?" I asked, touching his arm. "Are you just tired from the long day?" He turned to look at me, and his face was the face of a stranger. His eyes were full of a terrible pain and guilt. He could not look at me. "Lily," he said, his voice a broken whisper, "I have made a terrible mistake." I did not understand. A mistake? What mistake? We were married. We were happy. He took a deep breath. "I can't do this," he said. "I am so sorry. I am a coward. I should have told you before." My whole body went cold. "Told me what?" I asked, my voice trembling. He finally looked at me, and his eyes were full of tears. "I am in love with someone else, Lily," he said. "I thought I could forget her. I thought I could build a life with you. But I can't. Seeing you in that dress today, I realized I cannot live this lie." He picked up his bag, which was by the door. I was in shock. I could not move. I could not speak. He walked to the door of our wedding suite. He stopped for a moment, his hand on the doorknob. He did not look back. "I am sorry," he whispered one last time. And then he was gone. He left me alone, in my beautiful white wedding dress, on my wedding night. For a long time, I did not move. I just stood in the middle of that beautiful, cruel room, a silent statue in a white dress. The candles flickered and the flowers smelled so sweet. It was a room for a happy beginning, but my story had ended before it even started. My mind was empty and loud at the same time. The words he said, "I am in love with someone else," played over and over again, a terrible repeating song. This was not real. This could not be real. In a few minutes, he would walk back through the door, laughing, and say it was all a terrible joke. But the door stayed closed. The room stayed empty. He was gone. My whole body started to shake. I looked at myself in the big mirror. I saw a bride. But my face was white with shock, and my eyes were empty. The dress, which was so beautiful and full of hope just a few hours ago, now felt like a costume for a sad play. Slowly, my hands went to the back of the dress. My fingers were clumsy, but I undid the small white buttons, one by one. I stepped out of the dress and let it fall to the floor in a sad white pile. It was the shortest marriage in history. It lasted for a few happy hours, and then it was over. I did not know what to do. I could not stay in that room. I found my phone, and I called the only people I knew would save me. My parents. My mother answered, her voice sleepy and happy. "Lily, my dear, is everything okay?" I could not speak. A sob, a huge, painful sound came from my chest. "Mom," I finally whispered, Can you come and get me? Something terrible has happened." The next few days were a blur of pain. My parents took me home, back to my childhood bedroom. It was like I was a little girl again, broken and needing to be fixed. But some things cannot be fixed. The beautiful wedding gifts started to arrive at the house. Each one was like a small knife in my heart. Friends and family sent messages. "Congratulations, we are so happy for you." They did not know. How could I tell them? How could I explain that my perfect husband had left me on our wedding night? The shame was a heavy blanket that I could not escape. The worst part came a week later. I finally asked my parents the question that was burning in my mind. Who is she? The other woman? My mother's face was full of a new pain. She took my hand. "Lily," she said gently, "Samuel's mother told us. The woman, it's Chloe." The name did not make sense. Chloe? My best friend? My maid of honor? The person who had helped me choose my wedding dress? The person who stood next to me in the church and smiled? The betrayal was so deep, so complete. It felt like the world was ending all over again. I had not just lost a husband. I had lost the two people I loved and trusted most in the world. I stopped leaving my room after that. I was drowning in a sea of grief. The world was gray. Food had no taste. Music was just noise. My parents were so worried. They tried to talk to me, but I had no words left. I was a ghost in my own life. One afternoon, my father came into my room. He did not look at me with pity. He looked at me with a sad, strong love. He sat on my bed and said, "Lily, that boy took one night of your life. He broke a promise, but you cannot let him take the rest of your life. You cannot let him, and his terrible choice, destroy the wonderful person you are." His words were like a small light in my deep darkness. That night, for the first time in weeks, I looked at myself in the mirror. I saw a thin, sad stranger with empty eyes. But behind the sadness, I felt a tiny spark of something else. It was anger. I was angry at Samuel for his weakness. I was angry at Chloe for her betrayal. And I was angry at myself for letting them break me. That small spark of anger was the first step. It was the fuel I needed to move. I decided I could not stay here, in this town full of memories and pity. I had to leave. I had to find a place where I was not poor Lily, the girl who was left on her wedding night. I was a nurse. I could help people. My own heart was broken, but maybe I could help fix others. That night, I went on my computer and I started to look for volunteer nursing programs in faraway places. I did not know where I was going. But for the first time since my wedding night, I was moving forward. 2 weeks later, I was on an airplane, flying thousands of miles away from my home, away from my broken heart. I was accepted into a 6-month volunteer nursing program in a small remote village high in the mountains of Peru. I had never been anywhere like it. I did not speak the language. I knew no one. It was the perfect place to disappear. My parents drove me to the airport. They were scared for me, but they were also proud. As my mother hugged me goodbye, she whispered, "Go find yourself again, Lily. She is a wonderful person." The journey was long and difficult. After the airplane, there was a long bus ride on bumpy, winding roads, and then a final journey in an old truck. The village was small and simple, surrounded by mountains so high they seemed to touch the sky. The air was thin and clean. The people were kind, with warm smiles and curious eyes. My new home was a small, simple room with a hard bed and one window. There was no internet, no television. There was only my work and the mountains. I threw myself into my work at the small medical clinic. The work was harder than any job I had ever had. We had very little equipment and very few supplies. I worked with 2 other volunteer nurses and a local doctor. I treated sick children. I helped deliver babies. I took care of old people. Their problems were real and immediate. They were not worried about broken hearts. They were worried about having enough food, about staying warm, about their children's health. For the first time in months, I spent my days thinking about someone else's pain instead of my own. My life became a simple routine. I would wake up early, work at the clinic all day, and in the evening, I would be so tired I would fall asleep immediately. Slowly, very slowly, something inside me started to change. The heavy, gray cloud of sadness that had followed me for so long started to feel a little lighter. I was not just poor Lily here. I was Nurse Lily. I was useful. I was helping people. I was making a small difference in this small corner of the world, and that feeling was a powerful medicine. Of course, the memories did not disappear. Healing is not that simple. Some nights, I would lie in my bed and the image of Samuel walking out the door would come back to me. I would feel that same cold shock, that same deep pain. I would see Chloe's smiling face at my wedding, and the betrayal would feel fresh again. But now the feelings were different. Before, the sadness would drown me. Now, I could feel it, and then I could let it go. It was a part of my story, a scar on my heart, but it was not my whole story anymore. I made a friend in the village, an old woman named Elena. She did not speak English, and I only knew a little Spanish. But we found our own way to communicate, with smiles and gestures. She would teach me the names of the local plants. I would bring her medicine from the clinic. One day, she pointed to a deep scar on her hand. She told me a long story about how she got it. I did not understand all the words, but I understood the meaning. It was a story of a great pain, a long time ago. Then she smiled, a smile full of wrinkles and wisdom. She pointed at her scar, and then at her heart. And I understood. A scar is a sign of a wound that has healed. It is a sign of a person who has survived. One evening, I walked to the top of a small hill outside the village. I sat and watched the sunset behind the giant, silent mountains. The sky was full of impossible colors, pink and orange and purple. I thought about the girl in the white dress, the girl whose heart was broken into a million pieces. She felt like a different person now, someone I knew a long time ago. I was still that person, but I was also someone new. I was a survivor. My heart was full of scars, but it was still beating. And for the first time, I knew with a deep, quiet certainty that I was going to be okay. My 6 months in the small mountain village passed like a dream. In that time, I learned more about life and about myself than I had in all my years before. I learned that the human spirit is strong. I learned that happiness can be found in the smallest things: a child's healthy laugh, a shared meal, a beautiful sunset. When the time came for me to leave, my heart was full of a sweet sadness. The people of the village, who were once strangers, had become my friends, my family. As I said goodbye to Elena, she gave me a small, hand-woven bracelet. She said, "You came here with a broken heart. You are leaving with the mountains in your soul." Flying home was a strange experience. I was returning to the place of my greatest pain, but I was not the same person who had left. The world looked brighter. The town was the same, the streets were the same, but I was different. The memories were still there, like faint ghosts, but they no longer had the power to hurt me. I could walk past the church where I was married and feel only a distant sadness, not a sharp pain. I was no longer a victim of my past. I was a person who had a past. My parents were so happy to see me. They saw the change in me immediately. The sad, broken girl was gone. In her place was a calm, strong woman. I did not stay with them for long. I found my own small apartment in the city. I went back to my job as a nurse at the hospital, but I was a different kind of nurse now. I had more patience, more compassion. My time in Peru had taught me so much. I was good at my job. I was building a new life for myself, a life that was quiet and simple and mine. About a year after I returned, a letter arrived at my apartment. It did not have a return address, but I knew the handwriting. It was from Chloe. My hands were steady as I opened it. It was a long letter, full of sadness and regret. She told me how sorry she was, how her guilt had consumed her. She told me that her relationship with Samuel did not last. Their love, which was born from a terrible betrayal, was not strong enough to survive the real world. It was full of secrets and sadness, and it fell apart after only a few months. She asked me to forgive her, but she said she did not expect me to. I read the letter calmly. A year ago, these words would have sent me into a storm of anger and pain. But now, I felt a strange peace. Their story, their drama, it had nothing to do with me anymore. They were two sad people who had made a terrible mistake. I did not feel anger. I did not feel forgiveness. I just felt distant. They were a chapter in my life that was now completely and finally closed. I tore the letter into small pieces and I threw it away. I did not need to forgive them to be free. I was already free. My life is good now. It is not a fairy tale. I am not a bride in a white dress. I am a nurse. I am a friend. I am a woman who is strong enough to be on her own. My wedding night was the worst night of my life, but in a strange way, it was also a gift. It broke my life into a million pieces so that I could build a new one, a better one, a stronger one. I learned that you do not need another person to make you whole. You are already whole. And a happy ending is not about finding a prince. It is about finding yourself. If this story of strength and survival inspired you, please give this video a like. Have you ever had a difficult experience that made you a stronger person? Share your story in the comments. For more emotional English stories that will help you learn and grow, please be sure to follow our channel.